8 Democrats crossed the aisle to help Republicans end the government shutdown, and how Croatia refutes Orban's claim, says Hungary can give up Russian oil. We'll talk about this with political analyst, European Leadership Network UK member Alexandra Filippenko. Alexandra, glad to see you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Alexandra, yes, President Donald Trump stated that Russia's war against Ukraine has caused the United States harm due to the high costs of supporting Kiev. However, according to him, the US is no longer spending money and, on the contrary, has begun selling weapons to NATO countries. What does he mean by the US no longer spending money on Ukraine? And your thoughts about this?
Well, this is extremely important, actually, because Donald Trump here is talking to his constituents. He's talking to the Republicans. He's talking to the right wing of the Republican Party that was, and we should remember that, against any kind of help for Ukraine. And I should remind you that for 6 months, the bill was laying on the floor of Congress, of the lower chamber of Congress, when Mike Johnson, the head of the lower chamber of Congress of the House of Representatives, just didn't want to take it to a vote. It was just laying there, a bill for $62 billion of Ukraine aid. It was just laying there, although and because, I must say, it's not a mistake that I started with because there were enough votes. Mike Johnson just didn't want to take it to a vote because he knew it would pass. It would pass with the help of the Democrats. It would help with the pass of centrist Republicans. But he, as a right-wing Republican, as a MAGA Trump Republican, was very much against it. And most of the Republicans, the right-wingers, are against any help for Ukraine, any kind of help of Ukraine. Even some of them were against selling weapons to Ukraine. So right now, Donald Trump, first of all, he did first things first. He put out to the front of his new agenda, he put out J.D. Vance, who spoke to journalists about selling weapons to Ukraine and how good it is that the United States are selling weapons and the money is going to the pocket of the Americans, not out of Americans' pocket. And right now, Donald Trump is again repeating himself. He's talking to his base. He is stressing that Donald Trump is only saving Americans money. No money is going somewhere out of the United States. It's only staying in the United States, or the United States are making money on also selling weapons or is helping someone, because through Pearl initiative, through the initiative of the NATO countries, right now the billions of dollars are going to the United States in funds that were raised by European countries to buy weapons for Ukraine. So President Trump is stressing that no, United States are not just giving out something, they're not wasting money. And although it sounds harsh, it sounds horrendous, it sounds really tough, taking into consideration the fact that Ukraine is being attacked by Russia every day, and that Ukraine really needs help in order to keep the front line, because as European countries themselves say, the European front line is in Ukraine. So European countries are helping themselves, they are saving themselves basically. So the United States is saying, well, if the European countries are saying that it's their front line and they feel it like their front line, they should put their money where the mouth is, and they should pay for it, and they should pay for the help. And Donald Trump is stressing that his constituents must not worry. All the help to Ukraine that is going, it's going according to his plan, and the money is coming to the Americans' pocket, not coming out of the Americans' pocket. So although it sounds harsh, it's President Trump's way of actually helping, because we understand that there were some parts of the Republican Party, some parts of MAGA, Trumpist Republican Party, the right wing of the Republican Party, that were even against of selling weapons to Ukraine. So right now, Donald Trump is talking to them, first of all, and saying that it is good to continue selling weapons, to European countries, and they can do whatever they want with those weapons. The weapons are going to Ukraine. So this is a way of President Trump actually helping the cause and actually doing what he's been doing for a long time. Yes, on the one hand, it sounds very harsh, but the reality is that without that that money and those let's say chunks of money coming from the European countries, with the government shutdown, there could have been harsh disruptions with weapons coming from the United States. And while the Europeans are buying weapons, the weapons are not coming in from really the budget of the United States. So there were disruptions, of course. There couldn't have been no disruptions because only 25%, for example, of the personnel in the State Department is working. And of course, there have been delays, but the flow is still ongoing. So without that money, without the money coming from the European Union, there could have been big problems. So right now, President Trump is just stressing, no, we're not spending anything. We're only getting the money. So it's his way of, let's say, continuing selling weapons for Ukraine, weapons to the European Union that are coming to Ukraine.
Yes, President Donald Trump also stated in an interview with Fox News that he does not intend to engage in wars, although he is prepared for military action if necessary. He emphasized that during his presidency he managed to prevent 8 military conflicts, but added that in the event of a war, the United States would achieve a swift victory. We've heard that a lot of times already, but what does President Trump mean when he says he does not intend to engage in wars but is prepared for military action? When he says the U.S. would win quickly, is there a Guinness World Record for that too?
Well, yes, I guess President Trump is expecting all the world records to be on his side and getting all the awards. But we saw how the Defense Department became the Department of War. This is not too peaceful. This doesn't sound too peaceful. But again, as the same thing comes as we talk about Donald Trump and some ways of his, real big steps, let's say talking about nuclear tests, that's very Trump style, let's say, talking about nuclear tests. That also doesn't sound too peaceful. But on the other hand, for President Trump, this looks absolutely different. From his standpoint, the Ministry of War signals that the United States are ready, that the United States are not playing games, that if someone even thinks about attacking the United States or doing something with the United States or doing something to the United States military. Let's remember that the United States military are all over the world, and only 40,000 people in the Middle East. Only there we can see that there are 40,000 American troops. So American Army, American Navy is all over the place. So anyone who might even think about doing something to those servicemen or to the United States, to territory of the United States, the blast will come immediately, because that's the Ministry of War. It's ready for war. It's not merely for defense. It's ready for war. So President Trump wants to signal that, first of all. And also, we should remember what is happening in the Caribbean. Although right now it seems like the pressure is slowly becoming less intense on Maduro, on Nicolas Maduro, the dictator of Venezuela. But still, the U.S. Navy are there. The U.S. Navy is in the Caribbean. The U.S. Navy is quite close to Venezuela, and they are ready to act if something happens. And also for President Trump, this is a way of signaling the American people that President Trump is fighting for them. President Trump is fighting with narco-terrorists, because right now this is what the Maduro regime is called. The Maduro is named as the head of a narco-terrorist cartel, Tren de Aragua, in Venezuela. And President Trump is, let's say, at war, but with narco-terrorists. So it's not a full-fledged war, but he is protecting Americans, protecting the American people. So it's all about a signaling to anyone or everyone or anyone who might even think about attacking the United States that the answer would be swift, the answer would be harsh, the answer would not leave those who try to attack the United States standing. So for President Trump, it's extremely important to give those signals, to give those, just like it's important for him. Let's look at his place of work. Let's look at the Oval Office, the president's Oval Office, and there are many, many photographs of how Oval Offices looked before. They were more or less the same. Let's say the colors could be different, but there has never been that much gold, that many portraits, that many golden elements as right now in the Oval Office, the flags and all that. So it's also a signal. It's a way of signaling the power, the might of the Oval Office, the gold of the Oval Office, the richness of the United States. It's all about signaling. And President Trump is trying to say that, yes, he stopped 8 wars and he's about to stop the 9th war. And he continues talking about Russia's war with Ukraine as the 9th war that he will stop. And he's signaling that nobody should even think about trying to attack the United States, because although the United States are so peaceful, they are not starting wars. But if they understand that there is a threat to national security, there's a threat to American military, there is a threat to American sovereignty, to American land, then the response will be horrendous, and no one will stay standing, let's say, and definitely the United States will attack, and attack swiftly and attack harshly. So these are all about signals. And at the same time, President Trump believes that what is happening within the United States borders has nothing to do with anyone. So, for example, the Nobel Peace Committee that should award a Nobel Peace Prize to President Trump, as he himself believes, and as a lot of people nearby President Trump believe, they shouldn't look at what is happening inside the United States. For example, the ICE raids, the raids against illegal immigrants, et cetera, or the protests against Trump. No, it's all about stopping wars, and it's all about preventing a war or preventing anything happening to the American personnel outside of the United States and to the American land. And it's all about signaling, like the Golden Oval Office or the Ministry of War. It's all about signals for President Trump. For him, symbolism is extremely important.
Alexandra, the yes Senate voted on a compromise final bill to extend government funding, taking an important step toward ending the longest shutdown in U.S. history. The legislation will now be sent to the House of Representatives. What are the key provisions of the compromise bill approved by the Senate? How does this bill aim to prevent the longest government shutdown in U.S. history?
Well, for now, this is a real compromise, and that kind of compromise that might not last too long. Because actually, the provisions that we see there, they are not about the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, the main point that was of interest for the Democrats. Because the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, as it is known, it previews some subsidies for different for all Americans and for anyone who is buying Obamacare Obamacare and who is under Obamacare's auspices, let's put it this way. Those subsidies are coming to an end at the end of this year. The Republicans promised to negotiate as soon as government opens up. They promised to negotiate new subsidies, new ways of Americans of using the Obamacare or in general the healthcare system, new ways of getting healthcare for the Americans. And as of now, the subsidies are extended only until January 30th. So if up until January 30th, they don't come to a conclusion, there can be a new government shutdown. So it looks like right now we are seeing a small break. It's just a break for the holidays. I suppose it's exactly like that because the Thanksgiving holiday is coming. The last Thursday of November is coming, and Thanksgiving is known as a holiday when Americans fly to see their loved ones and families coming together and people driving or flying or going on trains from one part of the country to the other just to see their parents, their relatives, their loved ones. And this is a real important holiday for the Americans. And then comes Christmas, of course, another extremely important holiday for the Americans. And it seems like Congress and Democrats and Republicans basically came together just to give the Americans this short break up until January 30th. Because there's not enough time to negotiate new subsidies. There's no enough time to negotiate a new healthcare plan. Maybe I'm being negative here. We should be more positive. Maybe by January 30th, they will come up either with a new plan or they will come up with, again, just prolonging the ongoing plan until, for example, the end of 2026. Maybe this will happen. Or we will see another government shutdown after January 30th. That's also possible, and that's very much possible. Although, we should remember one thing. At the beginning of the shutdown, and we discussed it with you, at the beginning of the shutdown, Americans didn't know who to blame. Basically, it was 30-30-30, more or less. 30% blame for Democrats, 30% blame for Republicans, 30% blame for both parties. So that's how Americans answered those polls. Whom do you blame for the government shutdown? Right now, after 40 days of government shutdown, most Americans blame the Republican Party. So it doesn't look good for the Republican Party and for Donald Trump. And that vote that happened on past Tuesday, the vote for governors in Virginia, in New Jersey, the mayor of New York, and some other parts in some other parts of the country, also votes happened. It showed that Democrats are getting the ground and they are really winning, at least in those democratic, we should say more democratic states. But still, it was, if not a harsh blow for the Republicans, but the Republicans felt it. So right now it feels like for the Republican Party, the situation is not that good. At least it's worse than 40 days ago, that's for sure. So we understand that there might be a new government shutdown on January 30th because the main point, healthcare is not, doesn't have, they didn't provide any decisions on healthcare. The Democrats or the Republicans, the Democrats want to see Obamacare prolonged. That's what they want to see. The Republicans, they want to see Obamacare canceled. So neither party offered anything new. Will they offer anything new by January 30th? I don't know. I'm not sure because there's too little time. Maybe they will just prolong it for another year. That's also possible. But maybe it's just a break until a new government shutdown.
Let's talk about Europe. The European Union plans to completely stop purchasing Russian oil and gas by the end of 2027, said the European Commission spokesperson. She said she could not comment on the US decision to introduce sanctions exemptions for Hungary, allowing it to continue buying Russian oil. How might the EU achieve a complete stop of Russian oil and gas purchases by 2027, in your opinion? What challenges could be EU face in implementing this plan? We will talk about Orban a little bit later.
Yeah, well, the main exemption right now from U.S. sanctions, the exemption from buying Russian energy resources comes only to Hungary. And this is the main obstacle right now for the European Union. And when President Trump says that the European Union should not be asking the United States to push Russia further and to make Russian economy suffer more, they should do it themselves. They should, first of all, stop buying Russian oil. But basically, they are coming to this stop. They are almost there. They just need a little more time. It's, of course, we understand it's the economy, as always. It's the economy. It's very difficult to just redraw all the maps immediately. It's very difficult to do that, but they're on their way. And the only country that is getting exemptions is Hungary. So when President Trump is saying that they should stop buying, he should say, well, and Hungary too. So for the European Union, this is the main obstacle. Hungary is the main obstacle. And we understand that it is a problem of economy, of course. If, for example, Hungary and all the countries could get subsidies, big subsidies, to buy someplace else and not to make the customers in those countries pay for redrawing the maps and redrawing the new and getting the new plans and getting the new ways of buying oil from someplace else, if they had the subsidies, maybe from Brussels, maybe from some countries, maybe from Germany, maybe from the richer countries of the European Union. Of course, this could have happened easier and this could have happened faster, but it's all about the money. We understand that the governments, they don't want to make their citizens suffer. They don't want to make their citizens pay more. It's a very complicated issue because all of those governments are democratic governments, democratically elected governments. And of course, the opponents can try to use this fact of, for example, prices becoming higher in order to get the higher ground, in order to get votes. Of course, we all understand that first things first. First thing is the danger coming from Russia to the European Union. But it's all so intertwined that sometimes people are not ready to think about the future. They need to think about their pocket right now. They need to think about how much they pay right now. And they are not sure what is going to happen tomorrow. Some of them say that we don't want to think about Russia attacking the European Union because we don't know if we're going to be alive in some time, because we don't have money to pay for gas or for oil right now. So this is a very big problem. And the European Union, yes, I know we all wish the European Union could stop buying Russian oil faster, but they're doing it only because it's the economy, not because they don't want to stop. They wish they could, but they don't have the subsidies. They need to find new ways. It's slowly but surely. And the only country that is getting exemptions is Hungary.
Croatian Prime Minister has dismissed Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's claims that Budapest allegedly cannot replace Russian oil with supplies through the Adriatic pipeline, according to Index. This is an entirely false narrative from the Hungarian authorities and MOL, which completely distorts the facts and the truth. Geneva has all the capabilities and capacity to deliver the full amount of crude oil required by refineries in Hungary, with more than sufficient throughput, the Prime Minister said. How significant is the Adriatic pipeline in the context of replacing Russian oil supplies to Hungary?
Of course, Viktor Orban is playing a game. He's playing a game with the European Union. He's playing a game with the United States. And probably he's playing this game, or let's put it in President Trump's language, let's say he's playing cards that were dealt to Viktor Orban by the Kremlin, most probably. Because, yes, Hungary is saying that it's crucial for Hungarian economy to keep domestic energy prices low, to continue buying Russian energy resources. So they are saying it's crucial. But the economists are saying no, prices, they might come up a little bit, but it's not going to be dramatic. It won't make the economy fall. But for Viktor Orban, we should also remember his election is coming up. His re-election campaign is on full throttle right now. His election is coming up in April 2026, and some political analysts, especially political analysts that specialize in the European studies, they say that that meeting in Budapest that was supposed to happen between Trump and Putin, and that was canceled by the American side, that was a way to support Viktor Orban before his election. And they are even saying that maybe some kind of meeting might happen before April 2026, because both sides, the American side and the Russian side, they both want to support Viktor Orban. So we understand that he is, well, a little bit, that's a little bit of an exaggeration to say that it's crucial for the economy, or otherwise the economy will fall. Yes, the prices might go up a little bit, but that won't make Hungary crumble under those prices. So the exemptions that effectively allow Hungary to continue importing Russian oil, Russian gas, Russian resources, Russian energy resources, is a way to, let's say, support Viktor Orban within Hungary. And I suppose, but again, I'm not a specialist on Hungary, but I suppose it also looks very powerful for Viktor Orban himself that he talked President Trump into allowing him to continue buying Russian oil. This looks really powerful. The Prime Minister of Hungary is talking Donald Trump into doing something that he wants. Not like other European leaders, not like other prime ministers of some European countries that sometimes have difficult relationship with President Trump. So I believe this is important for the inside of Hungary, for Viktor Orban to actually win the elections in April 2026. So it doesn't have that much connection to the truth. It's not the economy. This time it's not the economy, it's politics. And it's the way Viktor Orban looks for his constituents, for his electorate. That's how Viktor Orban looks inside the country. Very powerful, and the prime minister that can talk to President Trump and that can get what he wants from the American side.
Trump announced that the US will lower import tariffs on India due to its reduced purchases of Russian oil during a conversation with journalists at the White House. The US president said currently tariffs on India are very high because of Russian oil, and they have stopped importing Russian oil. They have significantly reduced it. And yes, we are going to lower the tariffs. Would prompt President Trump to announce a reduction in US import tariffs on India? What do you think?
I think that's an incentive. That President Trump wants to award India for buying less. He sees that they didn't stop fully. Yes, they continue, especially the private companies, not non-governmental companies, they continue. But if they're trying, that maybe they should get an award for it, some small award. And then if they decide to buy even less, maybe get a bigger award. And then they stop buying it altogether, to just stop buying it, and no tariffs at all for India, new agreements with India, etc., etc. So I think President Trump wants India to see that if they are coming into his direction, he is ready to come into their direction. If they are stepping away from Russian oil, President Trump is ready to step in and come closer to India. Because again, for India, it's also talking about internal politics of India. For India, it's very important due to its colonial past. It's always been extremely important for any Indian government, and they were very powerful in it, to show that they're not cracking under pressure of big powers due to its colonial past. India has been always very, very powerful in stating that they're sovereign, that they can decide on their own. So I believe that President Trump is here also playing a good cop right now. He played a bad cop for some time. Now he's playing a good cop. If they're buying less, then we will lower tariffs. If they will buy even less, then we will lower tariffs. If they stop buying, no tariffs at all. So this is kind of a negotiating tactic, I believe, from President Trump.
Alexandra, thank you for joining today's discussion. Thank you for interesting conversation. We were pleased to be joined by Alexandra Filippenko, political analyst and member of the European Leadership Network UK. We appreciate your thoughts and we look forward to connecting again next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.